Hey, what's up, everybody? Rich Gibbens here on the Rich Gibbens Podcast. I'm here with my good friend, Billy Brown.
Hey.
So I'm going to let Billy tell you about himself as we get started, just to get an introduction of who you are, where you're from, and what you're doing with all the good in the world.
Oh, man. Shoot, there's so much good. So basically, I'm here in Sacramento. I'm an editor at an outdoor gear publication, and I've been doing that for about 15 years. So basically, I get a bunch of gear, I go on a bunch of adventures, and then I write about it and tell everybody what's good, what's not good, and what's great. So that's basically been the life for the last 15 years. I took a short break to do some TV stuff, which was insane. And then I bought a gym for 3 years, added a bunch of people to the membership, and then sold it, and then got bored, got back into writing again. And here we are.
Let's go, man. Let's go. So you're the youngest of 5.
I am the youngest child of 5. Yeah. So 2 older brothers, 2 older sisters.
Yeah. And you said, well, I know you from the gym. I know your competitive nature. And you said that was instilled from your big brothers and your dad, from boxing, from sports, soccer, and all that good stuff. Walk me through. What was it like being the youngest? I'm the oldest of 4 myself.
Okay.
I'm the oldest of 4 biological. Mm-hmm. And then in my adoptive side, I have another brother. And then I have a cousin that's my little sister.
Yeah.
Right? She adopted me as her big bro. Let's rock and roll. But talk to me about that. What it was like with the competitive nature and, what happened,
Dude, I come from a family. I'm 3rd generation Irish boxer. So I don't know if you've heard of Jack Dempsey. He was a world champion.
Yeah.
Okay. So my grandfather was his sparring partner when he was in New York.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, one of them. But yeah, he said Jack Dempsey, when you took a jab, just a jab, it felt like someone put a glove on a 2x4 and hit you in the face with it.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah.
Dude.
And so, my eldest uncle, he ran the boxing gym, kept it going, but all of the uncles boxed competitively.
Oh, wow.
And so, I'm the youngest in that generation of cousins too. So it was I had all these dudes to look up to. I had all these stories. And then I had 2 older brothers. My oldest brother is 19 years older than me. And my second oldest brother is 17 years older than me. So it was having 3 dads, And so it was I was raised by my mom, my sisters partially, and then my 3 dudes. And so they didn't go easy on me because I was little. So.
Irish boxing dudes, dude. That's a different breed, dude.
Absolutely. And so that started with them, just playing sports with them, and then I started, the whole thing, soccer, baseball as a kid.
Yeah.
And then growing up, I started and once I did football, dude, once I did contact sports, I'm okay, if I can headbutt or punch somebody, I'm really good at it,
Yeah.
So it was that became that. It was football, it was wrestling, it was all that stuff. And then they'd fly me out to Virginia every summer, and then I'd fight and I'd train with my uncle and then come back in ridiculous football shape,
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was just good times. And that translated into college. I wasn't playing football anymore, so I was all right, I'll start lifting, see what happens. And then lifting became a competitive sport.
Yeah, see what happens, dude. We're in the gym. You're putting up numbers, man.
Dude,
numbers.
It's just fun. It's playing. I love it.
Yeah. It's actually really awesome in our gym culture. Seeing what you lift, I'm oh man, I think I can get there. And when we were doing the pause deadlifts,
Oh yeah.
what did you get on that?
5. I think it was 525 for that one.
Jeez Louise, dude. Yeah, I did over 400 on the pause. I was sick, dude. I think was it 8 plates, whatever that is.
8 plates is 405.
Yeah. Did that pretty smooth. I was oh man, we're going places again.
Oh yeah, you're
see your number. I'm I'm coming, man.
Heck yeah, dude. 4 plates. That's so sick.
Yeah.
It's a good
Super
feeling.
Buttery. So you would go off to Virginia and train, come back in ridiculous football shape.
Yeah.
Right? And I want to go back to your profession today, because I know there was a pause. You had the TV stuff. You also mentioned previously in our conversation that you were trying to find something else in that world to where it really wasn't connecting with your spirit, with the subprime lending and selling garbage to anybody that could afford.
Yeah.
Or not even afford, but
couldn't even afford it. But it was just, So basically, growing up, high school, college, my big thing that was making me tense and stressed out was I don't want a job, dude. I don't want to sit in an office. I'm I don't know, wearing a tie, that doesn't sound great. There's nothing on a professional level that appeals to me in any way, and I don't see that changing. So I like right out of college, I was a personal trainer, and that was great. And then my buddy started making a grip of cash working for this subprime mortgage company, and I didn't know it was subprime. I didn't know what that was, And he's like, dude, you're great at talking to people. You should come here, get rich with us. And they're loaded now, by the way. So it worked for them.
Yeah.
But so I get in there and I get hired, and I'm working, and I'm cold calling these people, and like I can see like they've got a ton of debt, they've missed payments, but they own a house. So at first I'm like, oh great, yeah, you can consolidate it into this loan. And then I start, and I'm selling them, and I'm selling some mortgages and stuff, but I'm thinking like, I'm starting to realize these are high interest loans, man. And so most of the time I'd be like, hey, Citi can actually get you like a lot of points lower than this. And so I could see my boss poking his head over the cubicle wall when he's talking, like I'm talking to people. I'm like, I don't know, it's better, man. And they can qualify for it. And so after like 7 months, I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing this. Like, this is like, I'm not helping people.
Right. Yeah, no. It's helping your pocketbook and helping the business pocketbook, but actually helping people and serving them.
Yeah.
It's not ideal. And knowing you and where I'd imagine where your ethics and morals lie, that was not really good for the spirit.
Yeah, no, because like I care about people, and I was talking to people, and like I like these dudes, these are like good people who are in, for some reason or another, are having trouble, and I'm not helping them out of that trouble. And so, and I was like, I'd be like driving to work, and I'd be thinking like, man, if I got in a wreck today, I'd probably get off like a week off, like in the hospital. That'd be great. Like I hated it. I'd be outside, I'd be like looking out the window at 10 a.m., seeing people driving by, and I'm like, who's driving at 10 in the morning, being outside? I literally started smoking so I could take 2 15-minute breaks outside today. Like, because I saw people, I'm like, all right, I guess that works. But yeah, my buddy had this another friend had a job like filling ATMs, where basically he works 3 hours and he was on call like the other 5, which was great because it's a ton of free time, and it's like the opposite of the stress level.
Right.
It was cool. And I'm also like, but the way we're doing it, like, this isn't going to go anywhere for me. I loved the free time because that's just my jam.
Yeah.
And I was up in Reading, so there's trails everywhere. I actually went from lifting all the time. I started rock climbing, and I was wondering why people were so much better than me that were a lot weaker than I was. And I'm like, it's because I'm heavy, dude. It's not strength, it's strength to weight ratio. So I started running and trail running and doing all this outdoorsy stuff. And
Did that work?
It was great, man. It was fantastic. Yeah. And then the power still translated to like more dynamic movements like bouldering and stuff, which was just so much fun.
Yeah. So you did that job for like 6-7 months.
7 months. And I'm like, nah.
So you just made the choice, said, no, I'm going to go do something else. So I just want people to listen, like, if you don't like what you're doing, if you're not happy, you can leave.
You're never locked into what you're doing, man. You can always do something else. You can try to make it better. There's always like a choice, and it might be a hard choice. And then making that choice might make things really difficult for years. But if you're doing something that you want to do that's difficult, it's a lot better than doing something you hate that's difficult or something you hate that's easy. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like we get like 80, 90 years. I want to waste as little of it as possible.
Yeah, time, like, you can always recoup money.
Yeah.
You can always recoup things.
Yeah.
Time is so valuable, and I think it's often overlooked, like people scrolling all day or doing this or working this. If it's a dead-end job and that's your get down, like, go for it.
If you love the dead-end job,
if you love the dead-end job, then it wouldn't really be a dead end, in my opinion.
That's exactly it.
But if you're happy and content with what you're doing, great, keep doing that.
Yeah.
And like for me, I'm going through something. I actually just went through it last week where I had to make some personal changes, some life changes, and I'm really pumped on that opportunity.
Yeah.
With that, there was also an ending of a relationship in the Department of Business, right? In this one particular aspect, I was like, we came to a conclusion. Hey, right now, it's just not meant for me. So I'm going to go out on this other journey, right? And still have the other couple businesses we got.
Yeah,
it's not a big deal. It's just like, hey, this part ended, and that's okay because my spirit wasn't happy, right? Like when I'm not checked in, right? And if you're not checked in, just go find what's calling you at that moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's that yeah, I was reading the outdoor magazines, and I'm like, dude, this would be great. And so I started just doing it for fun, which led to more work, and it led to professional work, which led to newspapers calling me in, like, and then that led to magazines, and then it became this whole thing. But a couple years into it, there was a guy who went to our church, and he was so active on like all the stuff I was doing. He was following, and he's like asking for advice. He's like, when I retire, because he was selling insurance.
Yeah.
And he was in his like early to mid 20s, and he's making a grip of cash, and he's like, he's got his plans. He goes, when I retire, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. I'm taking notes on what you're doing now.
Yeah.
And then he got some infection in his heart, and he went into a coma. Came out of the coma for one day after his son was born. His wife was pregnant when he went in the coma. His son was born. He woke up, got to hold his kid, went back into the coma, and then died. And like he had his family set up. He got to meet his boy, you know. But that was just such a confirmation where it's like, I'm not gonna wait till I retire to have my fun. Like I don't know how much time I got. Like he was healthy, he was fit, and it was just a random infection
like
he
that.
got. Yep. And so it's like that just like kind of confirmed it, where I'm like, I'm glad I didn't waste any more time doing something I didn't want to do. Like
Yeah.
I'd rather fail at something I care about than succeed at something I don't care about.
Right. And
You know?
failure only really happens when you quit.
Right. Yeah.
And
Like, 'cause if
there's
you-
nothing wrong with quitting if
Right.
it's not for you anymore, and there's another endeavor, another purpose that's calling you. It's totally okay to be like, all right, I'm going to drop that. It led me to this point here. Now I can move on here. And, you know, you've had that several times throughout your life where it's like, hey, I'm going to do this. Okay, cool. Then you bought the gym, grew the membership, tripled the membership.
Yeah.
In how long?
In about 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what did you do different that wasn't already implemented that you're like, hey, I'm going to change this culture. I'm going to change this and allow opportunity for people to find what we find in our gym?
Yeah. I think like the owners were great people. They're the ones who introduced me to CrossFit. We were already buddies. There was kind of an insularity at the gym where it was kind of like friends go to the gym. They want people they know and they like there. So it really capped the membership. And it got to the point where it was like I'd be coaching and the lights would be off because they didn't pay the bill. Like the bill didn't get paid, so I'd have to like roll up the garage door, pull the car up, turn the headlights on, music out of the car radio. And they didn't want to grow, like there was a space opening up and they kind of didn't want to do it because it was like, oh, it's a big investment. And I'm like, you don't have room for more people. And they weren't sure if they wanted more people. And I'm like, dude, this gym's necessary, man. I see who goes here and I see who needs to go here. You know, it's got to stay alive. And so that was around the time I was traveling like maybe 2 weeks out of every month because I was doing my writing traveling. And then the commercials I was shooting for US Cellular were flying me to like Maine and Key West, like, you know, once a month, which was a blast. But I was also like, I miss home. I don't want Heather to forget how pretty I am.
Right.
You know, and like,
You can't have Heather forget that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I found out they were thinking about selling, and I was making a grip of money doing the TV stuff. And I'm like, can I buy it? You know? And so we did some negotiating and talking, and I talked with Heather, of course, and we're going to see if the numbers worked. But I bought the gym and we went into a new space. I bought it with a buddy of mine, and he was another coach there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we went into it together and we just opened it up. And I really wanted to focus because he was a really great athlete, and he wanted to focus on being one of like the really competitive gyms because there were 5 CrossFit gyms, and one of them was just like had the killer athletes. And I'm like, all right, you focus on that. That's great. That's you. You focus on the programming for those guys and stuff and bring them in. I love working out with them. But if you think about it, 95+% of the population is an average to new athlete.
Right.
I'm like, so I don't want to alienate these people, like the huge majority of the population and the people who need our help the most. I love seeing a competitive athlete get a little bit better, but I love more than anything seeing a non-athlete start feeling athletic.
Right. And we see that where we go at Iron Mile here,
Yeah.
where it's like any level, come on in, we'll get you going. It's all about taking that first step, coming to the gym,
Yep.
and then like take a sip of water.
Yeah.
Take a sip of water, see if it tastes good. And then
It's like dating.
figure
You
out-
gotta
yeah.
try it out before you commit, man.
Right.
I always say that. Try every gym because I'm confident ours is fantastic. You know.
There's my story on getting to this gym. Like it's moved me to where I got baptized yesterday
Right.
since being in the gym. And I've only been there since November. It's May now. I came in to sample it out in November after Element closed down. They sent me over to Cal Fit, which is now in shape. And they're like, hey, you have till through December.
Right.
2 weeks in, they're like, hey, we don't have you in the system. What membership were you on? I was like, I was paying $8 a month, man. You guys told me I'm good.
Yeah.
And then they were like, yeah, we didn't buy those memberships. You're out. And I was like, well, I'm not coming here, dude. Like, let's go. And then I knew of Ben. I had met him once, maybe like in 2017 or 18 or something like that. Maybe before then. Stumbled in the gym, and here I am. I got baptized yesterday.
That's fantastic, man. I mean, 6 months. It's a big life change. You know?
Yeah, huge. Like lots of great things. And, so I imagine the culture you were trying to build, like going in with a partner like that helps the security a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not, the onus isn't all on you.
Right.
And if you got a good partnership, you got good communication. Okay, cool. I see where you want to grow here. That's great. Get more athletes because we can have that. And they can also help when you need coaching or, when in the culture, when people are trying to work their way up. I mean, Kyle's in our gym now and, I look at him and we were talking and he's like, yeah, try this, this, this. I'm like, dude, that's a game changer.
Right.
Yeah.
And
And so having those people that are, elevated above us as far as the skill level goes is great to have. And then like you, man, I know your heart and I can just tell it's like, hey, dude, everybody that is at the top once needed this here. And it's just getting that entry level point. You come meet a guy like you and it's like, oh, cool. Like, wait, we're not worried about this X, Y, Z. And it's actually, we're actually using numerical values. We're going 1, 2, 3. And here's how we elevate you.
Totally.
Right.
Well, that's the thing is like every athlete you look up to started where you're at. No matter where you're at, they've been there. I tell every new member, it's like, you're not anywhere where any of us haven't been before. Like we've all experienced this. And I feel like once people see that, it's like, no, everybody struggled. And I tell them it's usually about 3 months or so where you're like, oh, I'm not the new guy anymore. I know how to do some stuff, You
get that little bit of confidence. You're like, all right, cool. Well, now I know who to dap up when I enter, like who's on my wavelength. I know people's names now. And like, it's always a healthy atmosphere, right? Like,
oh yeah.
I haven't been in there once where anybody's been really frustrated. I think I've probably been the most frustrated person in there because of my competitive nature. I just get mad. Hell, I'm still learning how to kip properly and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, the technique is just not coming. Or, just I get really mad at myself. Nothing else. But I'm like, man, I just can't figure this out yet. I got to watch more videos and get like that imprint of what the motion looks like. And then start the feeling, and then as that fine tunes, just kind of.
And more than that, once you feel it, it's that practice. Like it's like when you learn to snowboard or something. I can tell you all day, get your leg on the front foot and then transition to the heel side and do all this, shift your weight. Cool. You're gonna falling leaf forever. You're gonna bail a couple times, and then one day you're gonna get a carve, and you're gonna like, oh, and it clicks, and then that like muscle memory like just finally sets in and you're like, oh, I know how to do this now.
Yeah.
And then it's just refining it. Same thing with kipping. Same thing with double unders.
Same thing with golf, dude. Like, I'll start smacking the ball, have a few good shots, and then one errant one, and then I'm focused on that for too long, and then it goes from 1 to 4. I'm like, holy smokes, hold on, bring it back.
Right.
You know?
And that's the thing. If you get too frustrated, it gets in your head. And it's like, dude, if you think about it, frustration, think about how many times your response to something bad, the fallout from that was worse than the thing that happened.
Than the actual thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Where it's like, this is useless. Like acting out because I'm upset or like having that change my behavior.
And go back to the time that we have, how much of your world we have maybe 75, 80 years, 90 years or so. How much of that do you want to spend in a negative world, in a negative realm? And it's your own head. It's your own doing.
Yeah.
Right?
The only instant gratification you get is an attitude change. You can be mad and then and it's hard. It takes practice. It took me a long time. But it's like you can be upset and then you can decide, I'm not going to be mad about this. And it changes your whole day.
It's literally a choice.
It's just a flip of a switch. And it's like, you know what? No, this is the situation. Can I do anything about it? No. Well, then I'm not going to worry about it. Dude. Can I do anything about it? Yes. All right, then do that thing and don't worry about it.
Right. Just do the next thing. Like like Friday I was golfing at Ansel Hoffman, and I was running behind, running late. It's a pain to get there, and I realized that on the drive I was like, oh my goodness, if I'm gonna go 40 minutes to golf, I'm gonna go to a more convenient location for me. I'd rather drive straight for 40 minutes than the stoplights and all that stuff. Just a first world problem. And no joke, it is.
Real.
And I ended up losing my keys. And I went through my golf bag several times, dumped it all out, looked through the push cart that I had rented and all this stuff. Could not freaking find my key at all. And I was like, whatever, cool. Go have a beer and hang with the guys we were golfing with and talking. And they're like, oh, what happened? I was like, oh, I lost my keys. They're like, you're taking that kind of well. I was like, well, I got 2 fobs at home and I'm just going to catch a lift and come back. Hopefully they find them. So I get in the lift. I start talking with the lift driver, and he's from India. And he's telling me how he was married for 23 years and lost his wife to COVID back in 2020, 2021. And I could have been upset about my keys. And as frustrating as it was, I wasn't going to sit there and dwell on it. It was like nothing I could do. Cool. I have money to get a lift. If not, I had a ride anyway, to come back, and I'll grab my key. I had fobs at home. All right. It is what it is. The 2 keys that were on there, easily replaceable. And I chose not to be outwardly express my frustration. Like, whatever.
Well, you didn't tell that guy, oh, I know how you feel, man. I lost my
No,
keys today.
I know how you feel, dude. You lost your wife. I lost my keys, bro.
Yeah,
We both
same,
lost stuff,
buddy.
Yeah. And so, like, in that moment when he's talking to me about that, I'm like, well, I'm really glad that my attitude about the key situation isn't causing me grief, isn't, a cancer. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
cancer is like, we're putting all this bad cells and bad energy in our body. No way, dude. Like, so like you said, it's a choice on how you're going to respond. And things are going to happen no matter what.
Right.
They will always happen. Things will always happen.
Yeah.
Since the lights were cut on, they've always been happening.
Yeah.
And yeah, just going back to you, like,
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like being afraid of death. It's going to happen. You know what I mean? It's like you're afraid of the only thing that's guaranteed, And it's like, losing your keys. When we first moved here, there was like a sequence before because we were in an apartment, like with, covered parking, no garage. And like the month before we were going to move into the house, like where I've got the garage, I can keep everything safe. That month the car got broken into and my workout bag was in it, which is my bad for leaving the bag in there, but they stole my workout stuff. And then 3 days before we moved, someone rolled off with my Harley, like in the next morning. And I'm like, at first, like I gave myself like, 10 seconds where I'm like, what? And then like, okay, you know what? I paid like $3,000 for it from a buddy. Like it was fine. It was a fun thing. And all right, I'll file a report, and if I get it back, cool. If not,
insurance pays out.
Yeah,
whatever.
we're fine.
Yeah.
And then with the bag, it was like, all right, I could be upset. I've got some other workout shoes, belt and all this stuff is gone. But like, people at the gym just rose up. These guys I knew for like months. Like they came up, like Daniel and Bowie got me like some Nike CrossFit shoes just because, E's buying me knee sleeves. Ben took me to like an outfitter and like just set me up. And I'm like, dude, like this is even better. Not because it's new stuff, but it's because it's like this community is like, it feels more like home now. You know what I mean? It's like I had that like chance to see everybody like rise up, and it was like that was more encouraging than having my stuff for another day.
Right.
Yeah. So it's awesome, man.
Yeah, we talked about leaving the job, but even people, man, if whether they did that or not, I'm sure you'd still be a part of the gym.
Right.
But
yeah.
that just helps. Like, hey, my circle's right.
Dude, it's just
this is
icing
right
on the
where I need
cake.
to be.
Yeah.
Like it's really no one's obligation or job to care or to show up for you. And in a good community, they will.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's, Iron Mile, man. That's repping it all the time, dude. They're just good people changing lives. Like that was like I came here and I didn't think I'd ever find another gym that had the same vibe I wanted, where it's like I want to get you fitter, but I want your life to get better. Like you're gonna learn how to think, how to move through adversity. You're gonna gain confidence, that sort of thing. And I tried a couple gyms, and Ben's little brother went to my gym. And so I'm like, all right, yeah, I'll check it out. And like as soon as I walked in, I'm like, this is my vibe, dude. These are my people. This is perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. My first day there, we had a killer workout, and I was a bit heavier then. And, you know, I just was like, all right, cool. Got a bit complacent since COVID and still working out here and there, but nothing like I used to or nothing like I am today.
Right.
And walk in there, try it out. They gave me the little sample, hey, try 2 weeks, you know, give it a whirl, see what you think. And I talked to Ben after that because I always like to know who's in charge because I want to know who's setting the culture. And I think that's very important for people to acknowledge, like, hey, there might be good people on this level, like walk-in entry level, right? On the factory floor, there might be a ton of good people. To really understand culture and what's really going on, you got to go seek the people that are creating the culture. And so I talked to Ben real quick. I was like, hey, man, let me get you on Instagram. I just kicked off my stuff like, hey, this is what I'm doing. You know, I want to see what you got going on. I came home that night and I was scrolling and I was like checking it out. And the first thing that popped up on my feed was Ben giving a sermon. And I had been calling to God like, hey, man, I need a church. Tried out a couple churches. They just wasn't my vibe where I tried out. And it just wasn't for me. Not that the churches or anything was wrong with it. It's just I need to find my people. Well, I see his video giving the sermon. Went back the next day. I was like, hey, Ben, we got to talk. What church do you go to? Like, where are you at? Because I've been seeking and then all this stuff lined up for me to enter this gym. I'm not going to turn away from a calling. And so then that's how I found Restoration Life. And, you know, Dan goes to our church. Ben's in our church. A lot of our people go to our church and all this stuff. And I was like, this is it, man. Everything I've been asking for. Yeah. And a buddy of mine asked me this morning, was like, dude, I was curious why you travel all the way to Tahoe Park from Natomas when there's plenty of churches in Natomas. And then I saw everybody that was at your baptism. It's like, oh, that makes sense why you go to that church. Like, these people are in my culture. And last year I was talking with my coaches and business partner. I was like, man, if I have my spirituality in order and my physicality in order, I'm unbreakable. Yeah. Right? As long as I have God first and the strength behind that to do what he's calling me to do. Like, I'm knock on wood, you know, I don't want bad things to happen, but if they do happen, like losing keys or whatever, it's
they will, and you'll be prepared for it.
Yeah.
That's just like, you're kind of bulletproof. You're going to get injured. You're going to get hurt, but it's not going to wreck you. You know what I mean? Like, emotionally, you're still going to be you. You'll figure out a way around it. You know what I mean? Like, once you're mentally bulletproof, you're about as invincible as you're going to be, you know?
Right. We're still human, right? And there's a lot of things we got to, you know, work for, pray for, you know, all that stuff and just move forward. Like, you can choose to be stagnant. I'll tell you, COVID messed me up. Yeah. Like, mentally, I'm a social being and all this stuff. And then, so I went down this dark path for years. I was already on a dark path, but not to that extent. And then it just exemplified everything. It was like, oh, we're going to be an idiot for a few years, huh? You know? And then, so I was like, okay, well, let me inch by inch, just progress a little bit. A little bit. Yeah. It's progress over perfection. I think perfection's highly overrated.
It's the enemy of like good. Like, perfection it's once you wait for something to be perfect, you're just going to wait forever, man.
It's too late.
Like, when I was starting to write, I'd read all these books on writing, I'd practice it, and I'm like, I don't want to try to do it yet. I don't want to try to do it. And I'm like, this is never going to happen, dude. I got to be willing to screw up publicly. You know,
you have to.
Like, I have to have some editors see how bad my stuff is, you know,
right?
Or not bad, you know. And that was it. It's like, you're gonna have to jump eventually, dude.
You got to jump,
you know.
Right? Like the water's not getting more shallow,
right?
It's probably not getting warmer.
Yep.
You know,
exactly.
It's there, and you have the opportunity to choose. Are you gonna live in fear or move forward in strength?
Yeah.
And you get stronger by moving toward the fear. You know. Circling back, man, you were talking about how you got back into running because the strength on your climbing. I want to get back to that because I want to hear about where you traveled to and your run in Colorado and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. So I started this outdoor writing thing, and I got into some bigger pubs, like Outside Backpacker, like Wired. And so what happens is these companies who would have gear, they not only want you to test the gear, they'll send it to you, that's fine, but they also will send you and a bunch of other journalists out, like, on the road to try it in action. So, like, Columbia Sportswear sent me and a bunch of people to Bogota, to Colombia, to try out their jungle gear, to see how well it breathed and stuff. So we'd be hiking through, you know, not the woods, but like the jungles and stuff. Like, I slid down a hill and my hand hit a plant and they got super tingly and numb. And I'm like, is this going to get huge? And it went away after like 30 seconds. And I'm like, okay, that was cool. Or like I'd fly out to Jordan to try desert gear and stuff. So we'd be canyoneering. I got lost there and hung out with like, me and my buddy hung out with a Bedouin family, these shepherds in their tent for like 3 hours. And
What?
then, yeah, like we busted out of the canyon. It was supposed to be like a 9-hour hike, and we were trail running. And like, so you get out of the canyon and you're like, they were going to take us to this eco lodge we were spending the night in the middle of Wadi Rum in the desert. And so we're like, can we just run? Because that's going to take us like maybe 2-3 hours. And then we'll just get there early and eat and hang out. I'm like, yeah, sure. So we run through this canyon, which was epic in and of itself. And then we get out and there's just an expanse, like nothing. And I'm like, so the lodge is where? And I'm like, I don't want to wait here for this long. So we're trying to pick a direction to go. And then this like 12-year-old kid pops up and he's got like 10 words of English, but he figured out that we're trying to go to the eco lodge. And in Jordan, there's this, as I understand it, there's this culture of hospitality where like if like someone stays at your house like overnight and you ask what they're doing within that like 24-hour period, it's considered rude. Like
What?
you see someone, you take them in and you take care of them, you know? And so, yeah, he insisted like, yeah. And he led us to this like goat hair tent where it was him and his mom and like, you know, the family was all out. And we sat there and she made us tea and we hung out like, and it was weird because I've got this thing where when I'm a guest, I want to be like entertaining and outgoing, but we didn't have any language to speak to each other, you know?
No.
So it was just like smiles, and it was weird because just the presence was enough. Just being together was cool, you know?
Yeah, I imagine being in that tent with you right now. And, you know, I've been in places where I don't know the language or anything like that. And you're just like, well, these are good people. They're not killing me right now.
Right. It's like,
And I'm a good person. I don't know what to say or how to facilitate any kind of conversation other than tea's good. Right.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do you have more? I'd love some, you know,
right.
like,
Yeah, it was the best. Like it was really, really cool. And it was nice to get away from like, cause I always try to get away from like the guides and from everybody else.
Yeah.
And that's usually where the adventures happen, you know? And then, eventually the older son who had gone to the American school, who had like, you know, 100 words of English, like, you know,
10x.
exactly. Right.
10x.
And so, yeah, we communicated and like, they showed us the way to the eco lodge, but it was funny cause I was thinking, man, people have been doing this for centuries. Like this is such a cool, authentic, like communal experience. And as I'm thinking about the antiquity and how cool and authentic this situation is, he busts out a flip phone and asked if we could take a selfie together. And I'm like, okay, all right, but still, it's still really cool.
Yeah.
It was the funniest thing, man. But yeah, it was amazing. But like between that, going to like Ireland, done heliboarding in British Columbia, like
Jeez.
adventure races across the Rockies. So I did this 60-mile stage run over 3 days.
Okay.
And I ended up, it was supposed to be 120 miles. And it was great because like you set up camp, go to the starting line, and then you run. And while you're banging out those 20 miles over the mountains, they pack up all your stuff. And there were like 200 people like doing this race.
Oh, wow.
So the crew packed it all up, put it to the next base camp. So you're basically running to the next camp. And it's all set up, your tent, all your stuff's there for you. And then they've got these caterers. You can get like T-bone steaks. They were like, I even tried my first portobello mushroom steak, which was like tasty, but I needed meat. And but like they had massage therapists, like ice baths and stuff like that. But I just like jumped in the river because there were like ice flows going by, so I'd like recover there. And on day 2, my knee started hurting worse and worse. Like I'm like, oh shoot, you know. And I could feel it like creeping up my legs. So I go to the tent after I finish the run, and they're like, yeah, you pulled your hamstring. So I'm like, oh crap, all right. And I'm like, you know what though?
Had you pulled your hamstring before?
I've done it on runs. Like I've tweaked it. The reason I ran was because everyone's like, well, you're heavy. You're not a runner. You don't have the build. And then my older brother ran a marathon, and I'm like, no.
I don't know if you know Billy right now, but I'm going to run this thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So then I became a runner. And so I was thinking, well, that 120, like 4 more days of this, that does not seem feasible, but I'm getting a damn medal.
Yeah.
And so they had the 60-mile option. So I'm like, all right, that's just like what? I did the math. I've got like 23 more miles tomorrow. I can do that. And so, yeah, just got up the next morning, stretched out as well as I could, and then like ran for, 23 miles, and then, did the 60 and finished it up. And yeah, that was
I'm gonna have to check out that run,
dude. The Trans Rockies run, it's amazing.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out.
I would recommend it to everybody. Like, it's so cool.
I bet the scenery. I haven't been, like, other than flying through.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. And like, that's the thing is, like, once you run through a place, you know it.
Yeah, it's
different. Like, I mean, it's not like I'm like an expert on that, but it's like you're in it. You're surrounded by it. You're smelling it. It's different. I love road trips, but it's different from a drive, you know, like you're just, every sense is like lit up with the area you're in. And it's so cool.
I don't know if you're anything like me, but I'm a mountain guy. Like, I get energy from the mountains. I love seeing how big and just how much energy is really there, and the life of it, the life of the trees, the life of the life around there. And I think that, you know, mountains are just beautiful for me. Like,
they're phenomenal like that. And actually I got converted. I became a canyon guy. I didn't like deserts for the longest time, but I did this expedition into the Grand Canyon where we were descending an undiscovered slot. So there was this guy who, Rich Rudeau, he was Outside's Adventure of the Year back in like 2013 or something. And so he would use GPS, like Google Earth, and find slots that haven't been named yet, but they're hard to reach, you know?
Yeah.
And then be the first one to rappel into them, you know? So it's a discovered slot, you know? You can name it, like, it's a whole thing. So I got invited to go with him, and it's not like there are no trails on this. This is like untrod area, you know? So there's no protection, no rails. You're climbing down. And so, you know, in the Grand Canyon, there's the river. And then you've got like 200 feet, and then it looks like there's like gravel at a slope, and then another couple hundred feet. And then, so the only way to get there was on that gravel, basically.
Oh.
So we'd go down like to the river, like he'd map the route, but we're on this exposed gravel, no ropes, gravel rolling off. I've got an 80-pound pack, and it's a 200-foot drop. And there are parts where like you've got to jump over things, or you've got to cling to the wall so you don't fall over the edge. Like, everyone on that trip had a near-death experience every day. I literally, after the first day, I wrote my wife a goodbye email, because I'm like, I'm 60-40, I'm not making it out of this one.
Yeah.
And so I figured, okay, I don't have service. When they pull my body up, if I hit send now, once my phone gets like into range of a satellite, then it'll send the email, you know?
Wow.
And it was unbelievable. And we hit the slot and came out of it. But I'm like, the Grand Canyon, I walked out of that and I'm like, this place is a coffin without a lid. I'm never coming back. And then after like a week, I'm like, I need to go back there. That was amazing. Like, grand is the perfect way to describe it, because it's so big you feel like you're hallucinating.
Right.
It is the wildest thing. And so I just started doing like, I went back to like, I did the 10-mile hike into Havasu Falls, which is like the Garden of Eden. Like, it's weird. You're in this desert area, it's baking, and all of a sudden you're in an oasis. And now it's like, we'll go to Utah and hit slot canyons and stuff. There's something about the desert that there's a lot more to it than you think if you haven't been there, you know?
Right. Like you said, when you're running through or you're experiencing it, you know, I'm still not a desert guy.
Right.
But
I'll haul you out there one day and we'll
give it a go.
You. Yeah,
give it a whirl, dude. I'm always down.
There's something about that like desolation where it's like, it's just me. Like, you don't have the distractions. You can see for like miles and miles and miles. Like, we got lost coming out of one of the canyons, and then I saw a glint, and I'm like, no, that's our truck. We just go that way, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's so cool.
Yeah, I think we as humans, like, we get caught up in our world. Like you're saying, when you're running through the mountains or you're running through somewhere, you get to experience it different. And I correlate that. Like, I'm just thinking about when I'm driving to an area and I have a GPS on. I'm like, I'm not really caring. I'm just waiting for it to tell me to turn left or right.
Totally.
Rather than mapping something out and going and experiencing it. You know, once you find out where somebody's house is or whatever, you're like, okay, cool. I 2 or 3 times get it down. And then after that, I try not to use the GPS because I want to start noticing a bit more.
Oh, yeah.
And when you open your awareness to something like that, when you open the awareness or you allow it to be open instead of living in complacency mode or, you know, or robotic nature, like, oh, cool, let me just plug in the GPS and go here.
Yeah.
But once you start focusing in or you're in the zone, even if you're driving somewhere, but like when big picture, you're running through a mountain.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure there's parts of you when you're reminiscing about this or talking about it, you're like, oh yeah, I remember exactly where I stepped and I saw this awesome tree or this awesome leaf, or hey, this boulder was sticking out, or whatever it was, or like.
Oh yeah, and it's vivid. It's like you're getting the most out of your life because you're digging up these memories. Because as you get older, when you're a kid, you know how everything's like fascinating. It's because you've never seen it before.
Right.
But decades and decades later, it's like everything becomes kind of normal. You stop noticing it. And then like you have to purposefully do that, you know? Or you can go out into the woods and see some crap you've never seen before, do something you've never done before. I accidentally got between a mom bear and her cubs, like grizzlies in Alaska. To be fair, this wasn't my fault. So I'm sitting in the middle of a river and it's, you know, salmon season and they're eating like for hibernation, like, and there's so many salmon, dude.
Yeah.
That they're just eating the heads and the skins. Like, and we saw like 22 that day.
Jeez.
And so I'm sitting there like on this like dry part in the middle of the river and I see this mom come over the hill and these two cubs and they're like young cubs, like where their hair's still disheveled and they're adorable. And
before they'll eat you.
Before they eat you, exactly.
Yeah,
You'd have a chance. The mom goes down on my right side. I'm like, where are and the kids are on the right side or the left side. And I'm thinking, okay, the one thing I don't want to be is between a mama bear and her cubs, right?
Never.
And then I'm thinking, you know what though? This is entrapment. They did it. I didn't do it. This isn't my fault. They legally can't eat me. You know?
Legally.
I'm like just like thinking all these like
You guys see what you did?
Yeah.
This is double jeopardy right here.
And so yeah, it was, and they were totally fine. Like it was weird. The first time like we were there, like the first grizzly bear I saw was a mile away, and it freaked me out. By the end of the day, we'd seen so many, and I mean we were basically seagulls to them because there was so much easier food to get.
Yeah.
Like I literally fell asleep. I took a nap for like half an hour, you know, and I'm hearing these big like bassy breaths because their lungs are enormous. It was the coolest thing. And what's weird is like I don't know. I never noticed it in documentaries. Bears, like they have like delts and tries. They have like the biggest like human looking arms till you get to their like catcher's mitts. You know? But I was just freaked out by like how jacked they were.
I always get amazed by people that think they can beat up a bear. Like you have no correlation to how amazing this beast is.
Right.
You have no idea. And they're incredibly intelligent. They can smell for miles. Miles.
And they're fast.
They're fast, they're big, they're strong. Like just one swipe and you're done.
It'll knock your head
You're
right
done.
off.
Yeah, I always think it's awesome. The human ego gets in the way sometimes of really thinking about that creature. Like just think, if that thing wanted to, it would kill you.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like it was just,
it would not think once. Like it's nature to eat.
That's how I feel whenever I'm in the ocean. I'm like, dude, if something wants me right now, if I'm like abalone diving or something, I'm like,
You're done.
Cool. You know, it's been a good run. You know?
Yeah.
I think those trips did that too, because I've had so many close calls. Like people will ask, like, have you almost died? And I'm like, I don't know. Do you want to pick? Like, you want to pick an animal, lightning, falls, drowning,
just pick a year,
plane crash, right? Like, give me a category. What story do you want to hear?
Yeah,
you know?
right.
And so, like, there was like flying back from Jordan. There was so much turbulence. Like, we could hear stuff like breaking in the back, you know, in the galley, and like the stewards are running up and down the aisle. Somebody screamed, and like you could feel yourself. You know that feeling when you're free falling?
Yeah.
You know you're falling?
You know.
It'd be like seconds of like, oh, this isn't, oh, okay, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember I was in my like mid 30s at that point, and I'd done a lot of that traveling, and like, you know, Heather and I'd been married for like 9 years at that point.
Oh, real quick, congratulations, 20 years.
Yeah. And just 3 days after my birthday, 20 years, man.
Dude, that's incredible.
Yeah,
Congrats.
it's phenomenal. Like it's.
So I want to get back to this adventure stuff, but like you got me. Actually, we'll come back to the marriage part because I do want to get into that later on. But
I'll wrap it up. It was quick, but like that whole time, I'm like, you know what? If I die right now, it has been a great run. Like I have crammed so much stuff into my life already. And I was at that point where I'm like, I feel like I'm in like extra life mode. Like I'm in like gameplay plus. Like I feel like I won, and now it's like, all right, great. Let's get as many like points as we can now. This is awesome. You know, it was a weird awakening.
So if you could look back right now, so you're 43.
43.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a decade for you that stands out better than the rest, or like what you were doing with your life or where you were at, and that really is like so far that
was the best decade?
Yeah.
I would normally like, you would think I would say like those 30s where I was traveling the world, I was doing TV shows, like it was stupid fun, but I love 40s right now.
Yeah.
Like, this is great, because even then I was like, I had to be winning everything. I'm like, I feel like I'm doing so well. What more can I do? You know, like, I was really, really hustling. And now I'm like, you know what? I love where I'm at. I love what I'm doing. I'm still doing it. And now I'm pouring into other people. It's just like, it feels next level. And it was funny because in high school, I loved high school. Like, I loved my friends, sports. We would always go out and do fun stuff. And I'm like, oh man, am I peaking? Shoot, you know? And then college got better. And I'm like, oh, I peaked in college because I don't want to work. I'm going to be a bum, you know? And then it was
Live down by the river.
Exactly. Yeah. I was like, I don't know. I'm not going to like life after college because this is great. And like 20s was figuring it out. And then it set up the 30s, which were phenomenal. And now the 40s, where it's like, all right, now I'm still doing what I love doing, but I'm helping other people do it. Like, I'm like kind of pouring into them now, you know?
And you're enjoying that more.
Dude, well, that's what I always liked. Like, I always loved helping people. When I was a personal trainer at like 22, 23, it was like, I'm seeing people's lives get better. This is my thing. This is what I like. So I got the torch tattooed, because it's like right here, it's like you're lighting the way for people, you know?
Oh, nice.
And so it was like, okay, this is something I'm never going to not want to do, you know? So it's like, in whatever capacity, if I can help or show a way, or, you know.
What a great reminder too. You got the torch. You're like, okay, let me pass this to you, what I have.
Right. You know, because I'm so stoked. I think everybody, like, and it won't be like writing for everybody. It won't be traveling. It won't even be outdoors for everybody. But it's like, you find you're happy, dude. If I can help you find you're happy, or like even tell you to find you're happy, because people will just be miserable, and they'll reach out and go, man, like my like, I have some friends who would go through a hard time. I don't like my job. And I'm like, well, what do you want to do? All right, what do you have to do to get there?
Right.
Well, all right, there's step one, you know, let's go.
Yeah, just write it down, talk about it, whatever you got to do to feel it and be aware.
And it's like, when people are like, oh, I'm going to be too old by then. I'm like, dude, you're going to be that old anyway. You're either going to be that old and doing what you want to do, or that old and not doing what you want to do.
Right. Which would you prefer?
Right.
That's what I think about is like, okay, 30, 60, 90 days. Okay, what does this look like? But in 5 years or 10 years, when I have kids or I'm a grandpa, and I'm going to look back, if that's how I work my life right now. If I flash forward 5 years and look back, am I proud of that moment?
Yeah. Right.
Then great. If not, what do I need to change so I am?